Hello, welcome to another video, and with this one I am going with the approach of better late than never. Welcome to my R Fantasy TBR. R Fantasy is a year-long reading challenge hosted on Reddit in the Reddit fantasy forum. I am not an avid Reddit user, however, this year I basically heard Cass going on about it, and I adore Cass and everything that she does. And it inspired me to have a crack at filling in my own R Fantasy TBR. So that is exactly what I have done. I will stick a picture of the board here for you. This is what it looks like. Basically, there are a bunch of prompts in here, and the aim of the game is to read a book within the year that fills out this board. Now, this runs from April 1st through for a full year, so it's not a calendar year, it's a financial year, weirdly. But it is what it is, which means I'm only a month late to doing this, which isn't too bad. So with that in mind, some of these I will have actually already read. There are certain rules and different ways in which you can do this. The simple way is fill it in with a book. The only rule is you can't use the same author twice. Or there is hard mode, where the prompt just becomes a little bit more specific. There's an extra rule about whether you can fulfill the prompt with a certain book or not. I am not doing hard mode. I quite simply don't have the energy for that, so I'm going for standard easy mode, which is just filling in this board, but you cannot use the same author twice. With that explanation over, shall we go through what my plans are for filling this board? I think we should. First up, first square, first row is title with a title. And for this, I am going with The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. Doctor is a title, and this is one that I am hoping to buddy read with Steph this year anyway. So it fits. It's going in there. Square number one. Across from that we have superheroes, and for that the only book I can think to fill it is Elusive by Emily Lloyd-Jones. This is about a bunch of people who become superheroes, but I'm pretty sure there are supervillains in there as well. But it's the only book I can think of that I own that has superheroes, unless we go for like the Villain series by Victoria Schwab, although they're more supervillains and I've already read them anyway. Next one across we have Bottom of the TBR. So this is a book that's been on my TBR for ages, and it only felt right to me to put Blackwing by Ed McDonald on here. Like, it's been on my TBR for so long. 2017. This has been on my TBR since 2017. And I have the full trilogy, and I haven't read it, and I really need to do that. So hopefully this will encourage me to actually read this book this year, fingers crossed. But from what I know, this one is like a grimdark kind of thing about a patch of land where people are like banished to, and the misery, that's it, which is a patch of land where people are banished to. Traitors, thieves and spies flee, they run to the misery, and then I think there's some sort of bounty hunter who goes into the misery to hunt them down or something. I need to read it. I've owned it for way too long without reading it. Next across, I have magical realism, and for that I'm going to go with When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. So this is magical realism or literary fantasy is the full prompt for this square. I went through the recommendations because they're on the Reddit page. There are recommendations for each of the prompts. And When Women Were Dragons was recommended on there, and I thought, oh, I have that. I would quite like to read it, so I'm going to put it on there. I don't know too much about that book at all, but I've liked some of the stuff I've read from Kelly Barnhill before, and I'm intrigued enough by it, so When Women Were Dragons it is. And then next over from that we have young adult, and for that I am going for The Stardust Thief by, I think it's Chelsea Abdullah. I struggled to fill this one, to be totally honest with you. I was looking through my shelf thinking, what young adult am I excited to read? I really don't know. And then spotted that one, and it came from a Fairy Loot YA, so it's a YA. It's one of the ones that I have kept on my shelf and hasn't somehow ended up going somewhere else, because a lot of the YA that I get doesn't stick around for very long because I'm not really in a YA mood a lot of the time, but this one has managed to stay on my shelf, so maybe I will actually read it. Next row, we start off with Mundane Jobs. For this one, I am going with Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the sequel to Legends and Lattes, and in that we have them running a coffee shop, and I'm pretty sure Bookshops and Bone Dust, we are going to see them running a bookshop, which is a mundane job. It hasn't come out yet, but it is coming out this year, so I should be able to read it and fulfill that prompt with that one. Next over, we have Published in the 2000s, and for that I am going for Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I believe this was published in 2009? 2009. It says 2009 at the top, so I'm taking it. I should be reading this month, so it is one that should be achieved quite easily. I have been desperate to read more Brandon Sanderson and have been, for unknown reasons, kind of putting it off, and now we're finally at a point where I'm going to be continuing with Brandon Sanderson. I've read the short stories that I need to before I go into Warbreaker from Arcanum Unbounded, so I'm ready to dive back in and continue with the Cosmere. I'm very excited to do so, and it fulfills that square. Next up, we have Angels and Demons, and for this one, I am going for The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell. I have already read this, and I read it before April, so my first read doesn't count, but I do plan on rereading it very soon because it has recently come out, and I really want to reread it. The audiobooks come out, I want to listen to it because I'm intrigued by the goat voice, so I think I will probably reread The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell and listen to the audiobook as I do that. I'm very excited. I love this book. I love Sebastian de Castell, that's not a secret. Everyone knows that. Although I've already read it not that long ago, I am keen to give it a reread. There are angels, there are demons, there are war mages, there is a war, there is dreadful magic and bloodshed and gore and a goat. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading it again. Next up, we have 5 short stories, and for this I'm going to read The River of Silver by S.A. Chakraborty, which is the collection of short stories from the Daevabad world. I don't know how I haven't read these already, because I was so super excited to read River of Silver when it first came out. I just haven't done it yet. It's not that long, and I didn't know it was a short story collection. I thought it was a short story. I am wrong. It is a short story collection, so it fulfills this prompt, and I'm very excited to go back to that world and read more. I love S.A. Chakraborty's writing. I love the Daevabad world. I'm excited to do so. Next up, we have horror. I am not a horror reader, like, at all. However, I did reread Annihilation in April, and it is a sci-fi horror thriller mashup, so I'm counting it as my horror because I'm not a horror reader. Next up, we have self-published or indie published, and at the minute I am working my way through the Threadlight trilogy by Zach Argyle. I read Voice of War and Stones of Light both in April, and I'm planning on reading Bonds of Chaos this month, so any of those 3 will fulfill that square. 2 of those I've already read, so I have already fulfilled this square, and I'm actually doing quite well on working on my goal of reading more indie or self-pubbed books this year, because I've also recently read the Serpent one that everyone loves. The Serpent and the Wings of Night, that's self-pubbed as well. So I'm doing alright with reading my self-pubbed, but I think for the purpose of filling in the board, I'm going to go with Bonds of Chaos by Zach Argyle, which is the 3rd and final book in the Threadlight trilogy, which is my current Patreon buddy read, and I'm excited to wrap up that series and hopefully get some answers, because I'm still confused about a lot of things in this world. Next up, we have Set in the Middle East, or a Middle Eastern sci-fi fantasy. And for that, I'm going to go for Spice Road by Maya Ibrahim, I believe. This one. I'm going to go for Spice Road. I just can't get over how beautiful this edition is. This is on my possible May TBR, so again, another one I would like to get to this month. My reading for this month is becoming a little bit overwhelming, maybe. For some reason, this book is just shouting out to me at the minute, and it is Middle Eastern inspired, so fits that prompt. I'm excited to see what this, like, spice tea magic is, because that sounds intriguing to me. So this one for that one. Next up, we have published in 2023. Now, I kind of want to leave this one open because 2023 is not over yet. There will be more books coming out this year that I will be excited about. I am just terrible at keeping up with new releases and what's on the horizon, so I don't know what they are. So from a recent purchase, for the sake of assigning a book now, but this is definitely open to change later in the year, I'm gonna go for The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. I bought this one recently. It's been blurbed by Jeff Vandermeer. It is a weird sci-fi eco-thriller thing, again, similar to Annihilation and Born and all of that lot, that I've been really on an enjoyment train of. With this one, there are octopus squid type creatures. There are creatures in the water. To the locals, they're monsters. To the corporate owners of the island, an opportunity. To the team sent to study them, a revelation. Their minds are unlike ours. Their bodies are malleable, transformable, shifting. They can communicate, and they want us to leave. I'm so intrigued. And this is a recent release, so fills that prompt for now. But as I say, that one is open to change because there will be more new releases that I'm also excited to pick up. Next up, we have a multiverse or alternate realities situation, and for this I'm going to go for The Keeper's Six by Kate Elliott. I read this one in April, so it's another one that has checked off, but when I was going through the recommendations, this one popped up and it fits because there are like multiple universes, and the way they get to those universes is fascinating. It was a little novella. I enjoyed it. Took me a lot longer to read than it probably should have, but the universe's setup was very intriguing in that one. It's about a woman who is trying to rescue her son who has been kidnapped by a dragon lord. A dragon lord, like a dragon, and is being kept in his hoard in one of these multiverse situations. It's an interesting concept, that one, but I have read it. It fulfills that prompt, so there's a tick on that. Next one is POC author. So many options for this one, but I'm gonna take this opportunity to rave about a book that I have recently been absolutely loving and telling everybody to go buy and read, and that is The Art of Prophecy by Wesley Shue. Here is the cover. I read this one in April and am head over heels in love. 5 stars. Keep recommending it, keep pushing it to people because I loved it so much. It's about this world where there is a prophesized hero who is prophesized to kill the emperor. It explores how being a prophesized hero and actually being a war hero are different things, and how a prophecy can name you as a hero, but you still have to do the work to become that hero. Like, just because the prophecy says it's you doesn't automatically give you all of these skills and abilities that you need. You still need to train to become that hero. And then what if the prophecy's got it wrong anyway, and it was never meant to be you? I love this book. We also have the tutor character who is a miserable old bitch, and I love it. And then we have assassins, and we have just this really intriguing world, and I loved it so much. So if you haven't heard of Art of Prophecy, if you haven't picked it up, I encourage you to do so. Bloody loved it. It was fantastic. 5 stars from me, I recommend. Next up, we have a book club or read-along book. Now, with this being 4R fantasy, the options for this are not as wide as you may think. It's not just any book club or read-along. It has to be a book club or read-along hosted through R Fantasy. So there is a document of all of the previous and current book clubs going on the forum, and I scrolled through and found that Mooncakes was on there, which is a graphic novel that I have owned for a while and have not read, and thought I'd give myself an easy one there. Graphic novel, easy to accomplish. And it was on the list, so it counts. So I'm going to fill that one with Mooncakes. Next up, we have a novella. I read a bunch of novellas in April, so any of those could count, but I'm going to go with The Undefeated by Una McCormack, which is a sci-fi novella about a woman who used to be some form of journalist. However, there is now a big evil coming to attack the universe, and it is an evil of their own making, and it's this woman's story of how she's seen the world get to this point and her involvement with this evil. It was fascinating, and fascinating to see how this big threat and like humanity is running from this threat, but it's a threat that they kind of caused themselves. It's a threat that they nurtured and created and turned into the threat that it now is. It was an interesting thing to explore. Next up we have Mythical Beasts, and for this one I am going with Skandar and the Phantom Rider, the second book to Skandar and the Unicorn Thief. Here is the first one, Skandar and the Unicorn Thief. I'm going to be reading book 2 to this, which is Skandar and the Phantom Rider. I thoroughly enjoyed this a whole lot, and I haven't really been in a middle grade mood lately, but I think if I'm gonna dip my toes back into some more middle grade, this excites me, and reading the sequel to this excites me. So Skandar and the Phantom Rider is my plan. This is about a world where certain children are selected to be paired up with unicorns, but unicorns are not the beautiful, majestic, incredible things that they are in common fairy tale. Wild unicorns are vicious beasts, and you get paired up with a unicorn, and that pairing gives you some form of elemental magic as well. I love this a whole lot, and I'm excited to continue the series and read book 2. Next up is Elemental Magic, and Skandar could have worked so well for that, now that I'm thinking back on it, but I have put down for this one The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I can imagine when it gets to spooky season, I am probably going to give this one a go, with it being witchy, because I don't really do spooky, so I'll probably do more witchy reads. And The Nature of Witches is one of Steph from Steph Love's favourite books. She absolutely loves it, and I know it is a very nature and elemental tied type of magic about how witchcraft and like global warming and the seasons and everything are all tied together, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, haven't read it yet, but I know that a lot of people have adored it, so I will probably read it in witchy season. Next up we have Myths and Retellings, and for this I have put in the Shanghai Immortal. This excites me because it is Chinese mythology. It's got like Chinese gods and demons and stuff, and I'm pretty sure is about a girl who is pawned to the King of Hell and spends her time running errands for the King of Hell. It excites me. I do love myself some Chinese mythology, so I'm excited about that. And being an errand runner to the King of Hell sounds fascinating, I guess. I know there's a lot more to it than that. Like, I think our main character is also like some type of mythological creature herself, but I don't know the ins and outs. This one isn't actually out yet. It's coming out pretty soon, I believe, but I'm very excited about it. The cover looks absolutely gorgeous, and Chinese mythology is pretty much all I need to sell me for this one, so that's going in there. Next up we have a queer norm setting, and I was going through the recommendations for this one and realised that a book I picked up the other day fits, and that is Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. Apparently this is a queer normative setting, and I am very excited to read this one. I picked it up just the other day when I went book shopping. This is about the last dragon and how humanity exiled dragons to this awful prison of a land, and many, many years later, humanity now worships dragons as gods, but the gods remember their exile, and this is about how the last male dragon must form a bond, mind, body, and soul with this desperate thief character that is referenced on the back. The bond will either save the world or shatter it. Ooh. I'm intrigued by this. Dragon books. You always need more dragon books, and it is apparently a queer normative setting, which is another big plus. Next up we have a coastal setting, and I was stumped on this one for a little while, but the one that I have decided to go for this is The Forever Sea by Joshua Philip Johnson. This wasn't necessarily one that I planned on reading too soon. It's a pretty chunky beast of a book, but this is about a sailor who disappeared into the Forever Sea, but leaves a note that suggests that disappearing into the Forever Sea was not an act of suicide, but there is something lurking in the sea and they went to find it. And I think our main character is maybe going to follow in those footsteps to see what lurks at the bottom of the Forever Sea. I am very intrigued. Following in these footsteps, Kindred will embroil herself in conflicts bigger than she could imagine. A water war, a mythic pirate city where monsters lurk, battles against beasts of the deep, driven to the brink of madness, the elusive promise of a world below the grasses. All of this and much, much more sing memory. I'm intrigued by this. It's been on my radar for a little while. It's been on my shelf for a little while. I think the size of it just intimidated me a little bit, and I really need to get over that because I read a lot of chunky books, so I need to stop looking at the size of things and thinking, not now. But here is my push to read this one. I am intrigued by it, and it's set at sea, on sea, in sea, below sea. I think it counts, so I'm going for that one. Next up is Druids, so a book featuring druids, and apparently In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune features druids. I did not know this, but I have been told this, so I'm gonna go with that one. Here it is. In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is the Fairy Loot edition, which looks incredibly different. Look at those sprayed edges. I hadn't actually opened this yet. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous book. But yeah, apparently this features druids and little robots. I'm intrigued. I don't know anything about it, but apparently it fills that prompt, so I'm having that. Next one is features robots, and apparently that works for that too. But for this one, I'm going for A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is a little novella about a monk and a robot, and I think it's been like hundreds of years, and this robot reawakens and is set to do its like duty to check on the welfare of the humans, and it finds this tea monk. I've heard amazing things about it. Apparently it's quite heartwarming, quite touching. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm intrigued about it. I've DNF'd books from Becky Chambers before, so I'm hoping I enjoy this one a little bit more. And then finally, the last square on the board is sequel. And I plan on reading many sequels this year. A big focus for me is getting through some series, but a sequel that I'm hoping to pick up soon would be Legacy of Steel or Legacy of Light by Matthew Ward, which I could just pick up because they're right here. But I am currently reading Legacy of Ash this month, and my plan is to read these the next month and the next month, so they are sequels and it will finish out a trilogy for me. So there we go. That is my final square complete. I swear Finn knows when I get near finishing a video because he's now come in to say hello. And that is my complete board, or what I currently think my complete board may be. I am terrible with setting TBRs, so I am fully open to the possibility that this may change. If I read other books that fit those prompts, I may swap things around throughout the year. This is just a rough plan for myself, but I think it's going to be an interesting challenge, and I'm excited to be participating this year, even though I don't really participate in the R Fantasy forum at all, and it's simply through seeing like Cassidy and Mel doing their TBRs for it on YouTube that I've wanted to do it at all. So I will actually link Cassidy and Mel's R Fantasy TBRs down below as well, just because they are the whole reason that I wanted to do this. So feel free to check them out as well. But yeah. Thank you ever so much for watching and going through my possible plan with me. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have any specific recommendations for any of the squares for me, let me know. And if you are participating as well, let me know if you are. And good luck to you. Thank you ever so much for hanging out. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, give us a thumbs up, chat to me down below and all that good stuff. If you aren't subscribed and fancy subscribing, I would be eternally grateful for that. And I shall see you in whatever comes next. Bye!